Hello, and welcome back to an all-new video. So for the past, 7 years or so, I've been obsessed with redstone calculators in Minecraft, which is a game you're likely familiar with. I mean, it's not like the most sold video game of all time or anything. So this fantasy sandbox game incorporates a pseudo-electrical component called redstone, which can be used to construct circuits in a large and visual way. It's gotten more and more complex over the years, but all we really need are the basics. We have redstone wire, which can just be turned on and off. We have redstone torches, which invert a signal. And we have redstone repeaters, which extend a signal, because redstone wire only goes so far. They also have the secondary feature of locking themselves by doing this. We won't really use this that much, but it's something to keep in mind. So, we can use these simple mechanics to create amazing and complex innovations. Let's take a look. So here we have a fairly simple calculator that I made that we can use for a demonstration. All this one can do is add and subtract single digit numbers, right? So 1 through 9 and 0, I guess. So let's do an example. So say you want to, so we're doing addition, so you want to do input A, so let's do 3. This is the first input. That'll go in, so we have 3 plus, let's do 9, and see what it comes up with. So we can see it calculated 3 plus 9 equals 12. How awesome is that? Now we have a clear button, so we can just clear it, and it'll go back to 0. We can also do subtraction, so let's try that. So let's say we want to do, what's an example, like 7 minus 5. So that gives us 2. Really, really cool. And it can also do negative numbers. So let's clear it again. And let's do, let's do like 2 minus 6. And negative 4. So that's pretty cool. Well, I think it's cool. You may have seen something like this before. I'm far from the first person to make a redstone calculator. But I want to give a closer look to what's actually going on here, because it's actually a good representation of how calculators work in real life. And believe it or not, it's actually not that complicated. I mean, it looks pretty complicated, but it's not that complicated. All this really is a collection of 5 individual circuits that make calculators calculate. So, right off the bat, we need a way of representing numbers in terms of redstone. We can do this using binary. If you don't know what binary is, it's simply another way of representing values. But instead of using 10 different symbols, 0 through 9, we only use 2, 0 and 1. So if we count in binary, we go 0, then 1, and then we're out of symbols. So for 2, we have to use double digits, 1, 0, then 1, 1, then 1, 0, 0, and so on. This is brilliant because now we can represent a digit with a redstone wire. So off means 0 and on means 1. In computer science land, this is known as a bit, basically a binary digit. Going back to our calculator, the first thing it is doing is converting each number to binary. Each number button activates a combination of wires, each representing a bit. For example, 6 in binary is 1, 1, 0. So when we hit the 6 button, it activated the second and third while, representing 6 in binary. Our calculator has 2 of these circuits, one for each input. I colored the input A wires in blue and input B in green to help us keep track of them. Also note that the largest number our calculator can handle is 9 as an input, which is 1001 in binary, which is 4 bits. So we only need 4 wires to represent every number 0 to 9. If we want more numbers, we would have to add more bits. So you may have noticed that our calculator uses buttons as an input, and they only stay on for about a second and then turn off again. But do not fear, this here is a memory cell, capable of storing 1 bit. So when we click this button, you can see it actually stays on, right? This is called an RS NOR latch. They have a lot of applications. You may have seen it look like this before, but this one uses redstone repeaters to make it more compact. So how awesome is that? Well, it's not actually that awesome because now we can't turn it off. You can keep clicking this button and nothing's going to happen. So if you want a button to stay on forever after you click it, you could do this, but we want to be able to use the calculator more than once. So we use a clear button, which activates the other side of the latch. So we click the button, and you can see it stays on until we click this button, and then it will come off again. So going back to our calculator, we have 8 of these cells, 4 for each input. So this circuit here can store 2 single-digit numbers. And then the clear button, which is here, is connected to every cell. So right now you can see we have a couple of numbers stored in here. When we click this clear button, it will clear the system, and now we have nothing in the memory. This is basically like the calculator's RAM or short-term memory. A computer's RAM is basically just like a couple billion of these. 8 bits is called a byte, and we have 8 bits here, so this is 1 byte of memory. A kilobyte would be 1,000 of these, a megabyte would be 1,000,000 of these, and a gigabyte would be 1,000,000,000 of these. This here is the adder and subtractor, basically the heart of the calculator. It's what does the calculating. It's also the most complex part of the calculator. So to make things simpler, we'll look at a single binary adder. Adding in binary is essentially the same as adding in decimal. When adding 2 bits together, you can have 0 plus 0, 0 plus 1, or 1 plus 1. 0 plus 0 is obviously 0. 0 plus 1 is obviously 1, and 1 plus 1 is 1, 0, or 2 in binary. And that's exactly what this circuit is doing, right? So you can have, here's the 2 inputs, you have 0 plus 0, and we're getting a 0. You can make one of these 1s, so you could add a 0 and a 1 together, and we get a 1. You can also do 1 plus 0, it's the same thing, and it's still 1. 1 plus 1 is 1, 0, which is 2. So this adds together 2 bits. You can extend this to more complicated problems. Let's say we want to add 6 plus 3. In binary, that would look like this. So we go across the columns left to right, adding the individual bits. First we have 0 plus 1, so we get 1. Then we have 1 plus 1, which is 2. But the 2 in binary is 1, 0, so we put the 0 there and carry the 1 to the next column, so we have 1 plus 1 again here, which is 1, 0. So we get the answer 1, 0, 0, 1, which is 9. So we can do more complicated additions by putting more of these binary adders together. connecting them by this second output wire here, which is basically doing the carrying. So going back to our calculator, we have 4 of these adders together, because those 4 individual bits that we're adding, with an extra bit at the end, because adding 2 4-bit numbers together has a possibility of giving us a 5-bit number, kind of like how you can add 2 2-digit numbers and get a 3-digit number. Another thing I should probably note is that you can see the blue and the green wires are all weaved together because they're organized by individual bits. We have the first bit of the first input and the first bit of the second input being added together, right? That's like one column when we were adding binaries together. Then we have the second bit of each input, the third bit of each input, and the fourth bit of each input. And we're adding the bits independently, in like adding each column in the long addition. I should also mention that this is not my design. I did not design this myself. I don't know who originally designed it. I'm not smart enough to know how to do this with redstone, but I first saw this design on the YouTube channel Bennyscube in his fantastic tutorial on how he built a redstone calculator, as well as a computer and many other things. So I'd recommend checking that channel out if you're still interested. Now, binary subtraction is actually very similar. In fact, we can use addition to do subtraction. We just invert one of the numbers and add 1. So going back to our 6 plus 3 example, if we instead wanted to subtract 6 minus 3, we would invert one of the numbers, that is, change all of the zeros to 1s and 1s to zeros. Then we add 1 to both of the numbers. Then we get something that doesn't look right. Well, this is because something unexpected is happening here. This bit that's 1 past the amount of bits we added, which is the 4th bit in this case, actually represents if the number is positive or negative. A 1 means it's positive and a 0 would mean it's negative. So this answer can actually be read as positive 3, which is correct. However, that's not all. If we get a negative number, we have to do one more thing. Say we try 2 minus 7. We invert the 7 and add 1. The 4th bit is a 0, so this says negative 3. I checked this and that's not right. Actually, if we have a negative number, we need to take out that 1 we added over, which now gives us this. Then we need to invert the answer to give us the correct answer, which is now negative 5. So going back to our calculator, we can see we're using redstone torches to invert input B. And then we have the subtractor, which is basically just the adder, but now this extra bit at the end is the sign. It's telling us if it's negative or positive. And then it also goes back, because this torch here adds 1 to the system, but if it's negative, then it comes back and turns it off, takes out that 1. And here in the middle we have a 2 rows of AND gates. And I should probably mention the AND gate. It's one of many logic gates, and it's what it says. It's AND. It only turns on if this and this are both on, right? Input A and input B have to be on for this to turn on. So 1 is on, it's still off. Something like this. But if both go on, then this turns on. So AND gates are what are going on here. This signal will only go through with the signal with the answer and only if it's positive. And if it's negative, it'll activate these AND gates, which then also invert the signal, because that's what you need to do if it's negative. I kind of didn't do this redstone very well. It's a little bit messy, but that's what's going on. And then also, to keep in mind, all of this will only go through if it's set to negative, which it is right now, right? So if it's set to positive, this wire will turn on, and now it's only going to allow the positives to go through. I should also point out this locks this repeater, because if you subtract two numbers and the answer is 0, it's gonna consider that negative and then go through, take out the 1, and then it's gonna be positive. And then negative and positive, and then it just causes an infinite cycle. So this just locks it to make sure it stays that way. And I should also mention, if it's negative, it'll activate over here, or this wire will end up activating, and this just goes and activates this negative sign on the display. We'll get to the display in a minute. So technically, the calculator is done now. It's doing the calculating. You could stop right here and have a functional calculator. The only problem is the answer's in binary, right? So it's not very intuitive. Like, it's not super obvious what the answer is here. So that's why we're using this circuit, which is a little crazy looking, but it's a binary to decimal decoder. It is essentially just the opposite of the decimal to binary we did. So this here, it has 101 activated. So that's going to, it has each wire has a combination of torches, and when both of those torches are deactivated, this wire is going to turn off. So right now we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 101 is 5 in binary. And now the 5 wire is turned off. Now there's a lot of ways to do this. Because this is such a small calculator, we can just activate each number individually, right? Because we can only have up to, I think, 18, 9 plus 9. But if this was a bigger calculator that could calculate like hundreds of numbers, we wouldn't want to do this. In that case, we would want to use something like this. This is called binary to binary coded decimal decoder. Now this is actually a lot crazier than what we just saw. And I'm not going to explain exactly what's going on because I don't really understand it myself. But what it's doing is taking a large binary number, which in this case appears to be 239, and it's putting it through all of this nonsense, and it's giving us decimals in binary. So we have the ones digit in binary, the tens digit in binary, and the hundreds digit in binary. And then for each one of those, we decode all of the numbers 0 through 9. Instead of having to calculate all 239 numbers, we just put a large binary number, which is, what is it in? What is 239 in binary? I'll put it on the screen, but that's not real obvious, so instead it splits it 2, a 3, and a 9 in binary. But again, with a small calculator like what we have, it's simpler just to decode each number individually. So now we have all of our answers, and we just need to display them. That sounds like a good idea. So there's a lot of different ways to display numbers, but the simplest way is to use a 7-segment display, which even today is used all over the place. Many modern real-life calculators still incorporate a 7-segment display, so you've probably seen them many times before. And they're convenient because we only have 7 wires to worry about. Every number can be displayed by activating some combination of these 7 wires. So here we have one in Minecraft. We just, activate whichever segments we need to display some number. You could do this in several different ways. You could use lamps like this. You could use redstone torches. I personally like to use pistons. I think they look the best. This isn't a very good way to see it, so I like to invert the pistons. I think it looks even better that way because you kind of got the shadow to highlight it. So this is very simple. As you can see, I've laid out each segment in a row like this. So all 7 segments, plus we have this extra one which activates the 1 because we can add up numbers to get a double digit and we're going to need a 1. So in total, our 7 segment display actually looks like this. So every number activates the respected combination. So at the moment we have, looks like 5 is turned off. So that's going to turn on segments A, C, D, F, and G, I believe, which displays the number 5. One last thing I should explain is what's going on here. This is just, all this is a more compact 7-segment display, and it has the binary to decimal decoder stacked on top to make it even more compact. And this just displays the actual expression, so this only has 0 through 9, and it has a smaller binary to decimal, and then just kind of weaves through all the segments and does it that way. It's kind of like a stacked version of all of this. And so yeah, guys, that's pretty much the gist of what's going on here. That's pretty much it. I know it's not super intuitive, but I wanted to give an explanation of this because it's something I've been interested in for quite a while, and it's actually a pretty good introduction to computer science. So before we end the video here, I wanted to show off just how complicated this can become. This is basically the calculator we had, but greatly expanded. As you can see, this one does 3-digit numbers and has a huge BCD encoder, right? This uses the BCD because there's way too many numbers to code in each one separately. This one also does multiplication, right? Although it can only do multiplication with 2-digit numbers because multiplication gets a little insane. This is what the multiplier looks like. And I'm not going to go into detail about that in this video. Multiplication and division are a whole nother beast altogether. And I don't even remember how I did this. I built this calculator a little while ago. I think I even made a video about it. And that was like 5 years ago. This one also uses a 14-segment display instead of a 7-segment display because I think it looks a little better. And this is what the back of the display looks like. As you can see, this is just absolutely insane. Here's another calculator I made. As you can see, I have a bit of a collection going on. This one uses a smaller multiplier, and I built this one a long time ago, so this one's even more rudimentary. I think I even used pistons in this one. You can see there. This one also uses a different display design. It uses, what is this, water, and what is these, barriers? Thing that exists apparently. So that's pretty cool. And this is just the beginning. This video is just a glimpse within the realm of Redstone's infinitely expandable nature. Players have gone far beyond what I have shown you today, creating much more amazing and complex developments. And as Minecraft continues to develop and add new Redstone components, innovations will get increasingly prodigious. Every year I am more and more astonished by the things players have made, so I am excited to see what the future holds. And perhaps the most inspiring thing of all is people's ability and desire to create, Building computers may be lots of work for a machine that is not very practical, but that has not stopped people from using what may seem like a silly block game as a creative outlet of science and technology. Thanks for watching.